This egg is 10 months old, laid last September. No refrigerator, no freezer, no power of any kind. It sat on a pantry shelf in a glass jar under 2 inches of cloudy white water the whole time. Watch the shell, look at that yolk. It stands up in the pan, it holds its shape. 10 months. Most of us were taught that an egg left out of the fridge is a gamble. A week, maybe 2. After that, you're rolling dice with your stomach. That rule is true for the egg sitting in your refrigerator door right now. It is not true for an egg that came out of the hen the way it was meant to and was never scrubbed. Amish kitchens never accepted that rule because they never owned the appliance that wrote it, and they were not trying to squeeze 2 more weeks out of a carton. They were carrying a shelf of eggs from the summer glut when every hen in the yard lays more than you can eat, carrying it straight through January when half of them quit. That shelf is the whole thing. That's what I'm handing you today. By the end of this, you will have your own jar on your own shelf, and you'll know the one thing you must never do with an egg that comes out of it. Almost nobody warns you about that one. It will cost you a pot. 3 of these eggs are getting tested at the end, raw in the pan. Scrambled, baked into bread. Nothing cut out, including the part I don't love. One ask, and you'll only hear it once until the end. If you keep hens, subscribe because a $6 bag and a shelf is about to replace your winter egg bill, and this channel exists to hand you things like that. Now, why an egg goes bad in the first place? Everything after this depends on it. Here's what nobody explains before they hand you a recipe. An egg is not a sealed box. Hold one up to a strong light and you are looking at a shell with thousands of tiny holes in it, 7,000 pores on a small egg, up to 17,000 on a big one. Every one of them is a door. Air goes in. Moisture goes out. Bacteria goes wherever it likes. So why doesn't every fresh egg spoil in 3 days? Because the hen closes the doors herself. In the last minutes before she lays, she coats that shell in a thin, wet film. It dries in seconds. Farmers call it the bloom. Scientists call it the cuticle. It's a natural glaze that plugs the pores and holds the inside of that egg exactly as fresh as the moment it was laid. An unwashed egg, bloom intact, sitting on a cool counter, keeps for weeks. Not days, weeks. That is the unwashed egg shelf life nobody tells you, and it is the honest answer to how long eggs last unrefrigerated. It startles most Americans because most Americans have never held an egg with its bloom still on it. Here's why. Walk into any grocery store in this country. Every egg on that shelf has been washed, scrubbed at the plant in hot water on a belt. That wash takes the dirt off. It also takes the bloom off. Thousands of doors wide open, which is exactly why those eggs then have to be kept cold all the way from the plant to your kitchen. American processors went over to washing in the early 1970s. The cold became federal law in 1999. Wash the egg, then refrigerate it forever to make up for what the washing took. Now cross the ocean. In Europe, washing a Class A egg isn't just discouraged, it's forbidden. Sweden is about the only exception, and there the pack has to say washed on it, so the eggs sit out, on an open shelf at room temperature in the middle of the store. Same bird, same egg, 2 completely different rules. Europe still gets salmonella from eggs. Everybody does, but it doesn't get it from the shelf being warm. So understand what your refrigerator actually is. It is not a law of nature. The fridge came first. Then we started scrubbing the eggs, and after that the fridge wasn't optional anymore. The Amish never washed it off. That gets them to weeks, but weeks is not winter. To get from weeks to months, you have to do one more thing. You have to put a better bloom on that egg than the hen did, something that seals those pores harder and holds them shut through an entire cold season. The Amish answer to that is a paper bag of white powder that costs about $6. And I promise you, it is not the lime you're picturing. Most videos get this next part wrong. Their own comment sections say so. Let's get it right. Once, slowly. When we say lime, we are not talking about the green fruit in your kitchen. Nothing citrus goes anywhere near this. Squeezing limes into a jar of eggs will do nothing but waste good limes. The lime we want is a mineral. It's the lime in a mason's shed, not the lime in a fruit bowl. Its proper name is calcium hydroxide. You'll see it sold as pickling lime, hydrated lime, or slaked lime. Same white powder. Here's the bag. It says pickling lime on the front and food grade on the back. Canning aisle beside the jar lids, 1 pound resealable bag, about $6. That is the entire purchase. There is no second ingredient. Now here's the part that costs people a whole batch. There are 3 different white powders that all get called lime, and 2 of them will ruin your day. Garden lime is calcium carbonate. It's what you spread on a lawn to sweeten sour soil. It barely dissolves in water. It will not raise the pH, it will not seal a shell, and your eggs will sit in a jar of chalky water doing absolutely nothing until they rot. Wrong bag. Quicklime is calcium oxide. That one is genuinely dangerous. Drop it in water and it heats violently. It never goes near food. Wrong bag. Here's why the right one works, and it isn't quite what the other videos tell you. Stir that powder into water and you get a solution with a pH around 12.4. That is strongly alkaline, far outside the range where spoilage bacteria can set up shop. Nothing that rots an egg establishes itself in that water. And on top of that, the dissolved calcium works into the pores of the shell and closes them from the outside. A chemical bloom stronger and longer lasting than the one the hen made. High pH stops the bacteria. Calcium shuts the doors. That's the mechanism in order. Now the number that matters. Get this one wrong and nothing else you do counts. 1 ounce of pickling lime per 1 quart of water, not per jar, per quart of water. Write that down. And that distinction is exactly where the confusion comes from. You'll read one place saying 1 ounce a quart and another saying 2 ounces for a gallon jar, and you'll assume somebody is lying. Nobody's lying. Once you load 3 dozen eggs into a gallon jar, those eggs take up half the room, so a full gallon jar only holds about 2 quarts of water. 2 quarts, 2 ounces. The measure never changed. You are measuring the water, never the jar. One safety word. It's caustic. Don't breathe the dust when you pour it. Keep it off wet skin and keep the bag up high, away from children. Dissolved in the jar, it's settled and stable. It's the dry powder that bites. All right. The jar. This is the part you came to write down. Start with the eggs because this is where the whole thing is won or lost. 4 things have to be true of every single egg going in. 1. Fresh. Ideally the same day and no more than about a week old. You are preserving freshness, not restoring it. A 2-week-old egg goes in as a 2-week-old egg and comes out worse. 2. Unwashed. Bloom intact. Do not rinse them. Do not wipe them with a wet cloth. Do not run them under the tap just quickly. If an egg has a smear of dirt on it, let it dry and brush it off. Dry a dry cloth, a dry fingernail. Water is what kills it because water carries whatever is on that shell straight in through the pores. 3. Clean and uncracked. Anything with a hairline crack goes into tonight's supper, not the jar. Hold each egg up to a bright light before it goes in. 10 seconds an egg. It will save you the entire batch. 4. Never refrigerated. An egg that's been cold and then comes back to room temperature sweats. Moisture beads on the shell, and moisture goes in. Which brings me to the thing more people get wrong than anything else in this whole method. Store-bought eggs will not work. Not the cheap ones. Not the expensive ones. Not the pasture-raised organic ones in the pretty carton. Every one of them was washed at the plant, which stripped the bloom, and then refrigerated, which means they've already been through the cold cycle. Put them in that jar and you are sealing bacteria in with them. You need your own eggs, or eggs from a neighbor who doesn't wash them. Ask before you buy. It's a perfectly normal question at a farm gate. Now the vessel, glass, glazed ceramic, or food-grade plastic. A wide-mouth gallon jar is the easy answer. A lidded crock is the old one. Never aluminum and never galvanized. The lime eats them. Glass or a glazed crock and you never have to think about it. The lid keeps dust and flies out. It does not need to seal. Wash it hot, dry it through. Then the pour. Cool water, filtered or well water if you have it, chlorinated tap if you don't. And for each quart of that water, stir in 1 ounce of pickling lime. Stir it well. It will not fully dissolve, and that is correct. You'll get a cloudy solution with white sediment settling to the bottom. That sediment is not a mistake and it is not mold. It's the lime the water couldn't hold. Leave it be. Now load the eggs, pointed end down, gently one at a time. Don't drop them in. A chipped shell today is a ruined jar in March. Fill the jar most of the way up and make certain the solution covers the top eggs by at least 2 inches. If the level drops over the months, top it up with fresh solution mixed at the same measure. Here's the arithmetic. This is the number I want you to hang on to. A gallon jar takes about 3 dozen eggs and about 2 quarts of water. 3 dozen, not 4, because you still need 2 inches of solution standing over the top ones. 2 quarts of water needs 2 ounces of lime. Which means that 1 pound bag, the whole $6 purchase, mixes 8 jars like that. Call it 24 dozen eggs. $6, 24 dozen. That's about a quarter a dozen to keep them. Then it goes on a shelf. Cool, dark, and steady somewhere between 40 and 65 degrees. A basement. A pantry on a north wall. A root cellar. The bottom of a closet against an outside wall. Not the garage in August. Not the cupboard over the stove. And steady matters as much as cool, because a shelf that swings 30 degrees every day works the air in and out of those shells. Fill 1 jar over a week or 2 while your hens are laying, then close it and start the next one. Don't keep dropping eggs into the same jar for 4 months, or you'll have no idea how old the oldest one is. Date the lid the day you close it. Eat the oldest jar first. 2 more habits and then we're done with the jar. Run 2 jars, not 1. One you're filling as the hens lay. One that's closed, dated, and waiting for winter. When the filling jar is full, it gets closed and the empty one starts. That way you always know exactly how old the oldest egg in a sealed jar is, and you never have a jar you're adding to in November and eating out of at the same time. And when a jar is finally empty, don't save the solution for the next batch. Pour it out. It has been holding 3 dozen eggs for the better part of a year and it has done its work. Lime is $6 a pound. Mixing fresh is the cheapest part of this whole system. Wash the jar hot, dry it through, and start again. That's it. That's the recipe. 10 minutes of work, $6 of powder, and a shelf. A farm kitchen in 1926 did exactly this with a stone crock. It works the same on my shelf in 2026 because the chemistry never got the memo that we invented the refrigerator. And now the part that actually decides whether your jar makes it to winter. Everything up to now was how to build a jar. This is how people lose 5 mistakes. 4 of them will cost you the batch. The 5th one will cost you a pot, and it's the one almost nobody tells you about. Mistake 1. Washed eggs, and every store-bought egg is a washed egg. Your jar is only ever as good as its worst egg. Mistake 2. The wrong lime. Garden lime does nothing. Quicklime is dangerous. And agricultural or mason's lime that isn't food grade can carry contaminants you do not want soaking against your food for 10 months. The bag must say pickling lime and it must say food grade. $6. Don't improvise this one. Mistake 3. 1 cracked egg. A single hairline fracture lets the solution in and lets the contents out, and it will foul the water for every other egg in that jar. That's why you candle them going in. And it's why you look at the jar every few weeks. If the water turns cloudy brown instead of cloudy white, or you lift the lid and it smells like anything at all other than nothing, that jar is done. Don't argue with it. Empty it. Mistake 4. Warm storage. Above about 65 degrees, the whole thing accelerates, and the jar you meant for January is finished by October. Cool and dark, or don't bother starting. And mistake 5. The one you came for. Don't drop these eggs into boiling water the way they are. They pop. Everybody who runs these jars finds that out the same way a shell splits, and there's eggs strung through the pot and a mess across the stove. The reason is pressure. There is air inside every egg. It expands as it heats, and a shell that's been sitting in lime for 10 months doesn't let it out the way a fresh one does. There are 3 fixes and every one of them works. Prick the fat end with a clean pin before it goes in the water, or steam them instead of boiling them. Or simply crack them into the pan and cook them like any other egg, fried, scrambled, baked into a batter. Cooked any of those ways, they behave completely normally. One more habit. Give each egg a quick rinse under the tap as you take it out of the jar. not before storage after. That's just to take the lime residue off the shell before you crack it. And one more thing before we leave the jar, because I get asked this more than anything else. How do you know at month 8 that the jar is still good? 3 checks. They take about a minute. First, look at the water. It should be the same cloudy white it was the day you closed it, with the sediment settled at the bottom. If it has gone brown or gray or turned ropey and thick when you tilt the jar, something in there has failed. Don't go testing it egg by egg, empty it. Second, float the egg. Cool water in a bowl, egg in. Lying flat on the bottom is good. Standing up on its end is old. Floating goes in the bin, but know the limit of that test. A sealed shell loses moisture slower than a bare one, so the float tells you less on these eggs than it would on a fresh one. Treat it as a hint, not a verdict. Third, and this is the one nobody skips twice. Crack every egg into its own bowl before it goes anywhere near your food, not into the pan. Not into the batter with the others. Into a bowl where you can look at it and smell it. One bad egg spoils a jar. One bad egg cracked into a mixing bowl spoils a cake in a morning. Now, this is where I part company with some of the videos on this. You'll hear claims on this platform that these eggs keep for a decade or more. They don't. Those numbers get repeated constantly, and the people who actually run the jars are the ones down in the comments correcting them. Here's what's real. 10 to 12 months of genuine eating quality. That's the window. That's what the title of this video promises, and that's what I'll show you at the end. Push toward 2 years and you're at the edge. The people who take it that far say the shells go thin and chalky and start crumbling in your hand, and they describe opening a bucket of something nobody wants to eat. 2 years is the limit. It is not the goal. Take the 10 months. 10 months is already the whole winter. And one more thing you deserve to hear from me rather than from a comment. The Extension food safety people at Washington State, Oregon State, and Utah State all advise against this method, flatly. And their concern isn't the jar. It's that salmonella can be inside an egg before the hen ever lays it, and no bloom, no lime, nothing you do to the outside of a shell touches that. I'm not going to hide that from you to sell you a jar. What I will tell you is what careful practice looks like. Only your own fresh, unwashed eggs from healthy birds you know. Never store-bought. Candle every egg going in. Throw out anything that smells wrong or floats. And cook them through. This is not the egg for a runny yolk, and it's not the egg to serve to somebody pregnant, very young, very old, or already ill. Do it that way and you're doing what farm kitchens did for 100 years. Ignore all of that and you're just gambling with a jar. Now, some of you shouldn't use a jar at all. 20 eggs, not 200. No shelf space for a gallon of liquid. There's a second method for you. It's faster, and the trade is that it doesn't last as long. Food-grade mineral oil. I'm going to say food-grade twice, because this is the correction that shows up under every video that skips it. Food-grade mineral oil. The kind sold at the pharmacy, USB grade. Not machine oil, not motor oil, not the mineral oil in the hardware aisle. If you couldn't eat off it, it doesn't touch an egg. The method is about as simple as it sounds. Warm the oil slightly, that thins it and helps it spread. A single teaspoon coats a dozen eggs and then some. Rub a thin film over every part of the shell with clean hands or a soft cloth. Same rules on the eggs themselves, fresh, unwashed, uncracked. Then back into a carton, pointed end down, in that same cool, dark place. Turn the cartons over about once a month so the yolk doesn't settle against one side. What you get is a few months on a warm counter, and 6 to 9 on the same cool shelf you'd have used for the jar. Cool is doing most of the work here, same as with the jar. And in one study, oiled eggs kept in a fridge held top grade for 15 weeks. Bare ones lost it at 5. Grocers were oiling eggs by the crate in the 1930s for exactly this reason. Same bottle does it on a kitchen table in 2026. So which one is yours? 200 eggs and a cellar shelf, take the jar. 2 dozen eggs and a carton in the pantry, take the oil. And if you want to hard boil them in the shell like a normal egg, it has to be the oil, because oil doesn't seal the pores the way lime does. And before the comments get there ahead of me, yes, there were other ways. Farms packed eggs in wood ashes. Some buried them in dry salt. Some sealed each one in butter. Every one of those is real. Every one of those fed somebody's family through a winter. And every one of those works less well than the two methods I just gave you. That's a whole video of its own. Now, the test you came for, 10 months, 3 eggs out of the same jar, raw in the pan, scrambled and baked. I'm showing you all 3, including the one that isn't perfect. First one straight into the pan. The yolk stands, it holds its dome. It doesn't break when the shell opens, and the smell is nothing at all. No sulfur, no sourness, nothing. If you hadn't watched me lift it out of that jar, you'd put this egg's age at a week. That is a 10-month-old egg, and it is still breakfast. But look at the white. It is spread a little wider and thinner than a fresh egg would. That is the honest verdict on 10 months, and I won't pretend otherwise. The white loosens. Fried, sunny side up, is exactly where you'd notice it. Second one, scrambled, and here it disappears entirely. Loose white stops mattering the moment you beat it. Texture, color, taste, indistinguishable. The families who run these jars all tell you the same thing. Scrambled and baked is where these eggs shine. Third one into a batter, into the oven. It rose, it set, it browned, it's bread. And here's the part people forget when they're looking at a full jar in July. Your hens are not going to keep this up. A laying hen runs on daylight, not on feed, not on warmth, on light. She needs somewhere around 14 to 16 hours of it to keep laying steadily, and by December most of this country is down to 9 or 10. The light goes, the signal goes, and production falls off a cliff, and it arrives together with the molt. Every autumn she drops her feathers and grows a whole new set, and growing feathers takes so much protein that laying slows right down or stops altogether for a month or 2 while she does it. So it is not bad luck that your basket empties in January. It is the same bird doing exactly what she is built to do. The eggs were always going to stop. The only question is whether you kept any of the summer. So here's where that leaves you. Eggs averaged $2.58 a dozen this past January. That's the calm year. The winter before last they hit $6.23, and you remember exactly what that aisle looked like. In July your hens hand you more eggs than you can eat, and every one you can't eat right now is either going to waste or going onto a shelf for the month when they stop. And I want to land you on one number. $1/4 a dozen. $6 of lime across 24 dozen eggs. That is the entire cost of not standing in that aisle. That's the entire idea. Not a trick, not a hack. A shelf. The store was never part of the plan. If this is the first one of these you found, there are 2 more that go with it. The first showed you how to feed a whole flock for $1.25 a week instead of a feed store bill. The second showed you the free plants that replace what's in that bag entirely. And this one keeps what those hens give you. Free feed, free plants, and eggs that keep. That's the whole system, and it's all on the channel. Subscribe and I'll keep building it out with you. One last thing, and I mean this. How did your grandmother keep eggs? Ashes, salt, butter, a crock down the cellar. I want the ones I haven't heard yet. Tell me where she was from and what she did. I read every one.